Hare Krishna, is my sound okay? Is it breaking?
No, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, we can hear you. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. My internet is slow today. Yes, so I may not turn on video. जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभारि जय गोपी जनवल्लभारि यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राम जय गोपी गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Ram Gopi Jana Vallabha Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सती जवांगदे सब चरण आरविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सती जवांगदे श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ चंद्र गोस्वामी प्रभुगण की जय प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा गोपी जन वल्लभ गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय पुरुषोत्तम चेत श्री जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की जय गंगा मैया यमुना मैया की जय भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय सामवेद गौर भक्त वृंदन की जय निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories, lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम् ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 32, verse number 29. Yatha mahan aham rupas Vivre pancha vidhasvara Ekadasha vidhastasya Vapurandam jagatyata Yatha mahan aham rupas Vivre pancha vidhasvara Ekadasha vidhastasya Vapurandam jagatyata Yatha mahan aham rupas Vivre pancha vidhasvara Ekadasha vidhastasya Vapurandam jagatyata. Synonyms. Yatha as Mahan, the Mahatattva. Aham Rupa, the false ego. Tribrit, the three modes of material nature. Panchavidaha, the five material elements. Swarat, the individual consciousness. Ekadasha Vidaha, the 11 senses. Tasya, of the living entity. Vapuhu, the material body. Andam, the Brahmanda. Jagat, the universe. Yataha, from which or from whom. Is my sound okay or is it breaking?
Fine, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. From the total material energy, the Mahatattva, I have manifested the false ego. The three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. By His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Lord is described as Mahatpada, which means that the total material energy known as the Mahatattva is lying at his lotus feet. The origin or the total energy of the cosmic manifestation is the Mahatattva. From the Mahatattva, all the other 24 division have sprung, namely the 11 senses, including the mind, the 5 sense objects, the 5 material elements, and then consciousness, intelligence, and false ego. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the Mahatattva, and therefore, in one sense, because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word Swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent, and the individual soul is also independent. Although there is no comparison between the two qualities of independence, the living entity is minutely independent, and the Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has the gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and universal bodies are product of the Mahatattva. And both the individual and universal body are products of the Mahatattva. One has to understand the differences with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body has developed from a spiritual spark, and similarly, the universal body has developed from the supreme spark, super soul. As the individual body develops from the individual spark, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as the individual soul has consciousness, the Supreme Soul is also conscious. But although there is a similarity between the consciousness of the Supreme Soul and the consciousness of the individual soul, the individual soul's consciousness is limited, whereas the consciousness of the Supreme Soul is unlimited. This is described in Bhagavad Gita, Kshetragya Chapni Mam Vidhi. The Super Soul is present in every field of activity, just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that the individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, whereas the super soul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. Once again, the translation from the total energy, the Mahatattva, I have manifested the false ego, the three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Kapila is describing to Mother Devahuti about the process of creation. And it is very, very nice that Lord Kapila is telling from the total energy, the Mahatattva, I have manifested the false ego. It is also very nice. I have manifested the false ego. So what is Mahatattva? Um, the half some part of the creation takes place before the universes exist. There is Lord Narayan when he descends in this material sphere. He takes the form of Karano Dakshai Vishnu. He is also called by the name Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu, he glances at the sum total of material energy. This is the very first time, I mean, when nothing exists, even when mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, even when they don't exist. I mean, they are eternal. They exist in the form of in a um, in a dormant form. They exist. They are not actively existing. In before even the universes are created. This is like way, way, way at the very beginning of this material creation. So only Mahavishnu exists, and then he looks at the sum total of material energy, which is Mahatattva. Um, and when he glances at Mahatattva um, or the material nature, then from there comes the three modes. The first thing that is first there is Pradhan actually, then Mahatattva is created, and from there the three modes comes: mode of passion, mode of ignorance, mode of goodness. Then the Mahatattva combines with the mode of ignorance, and from there comes the false ego. And then the false ego combines with the mode of goodness and brings about mind. Then and the demigods, then false ego combines with the mode of passion, brings about intelligence and the senses. And the false ego combines with the mode of ignorance, and it brings about mm, the sound element. And from the sound, subtle sound element, the sky is created. And then the sky, when with over period of time, when the sky is glanced by the Lord, um, then the sense of touch is created. And from the sense of touch comes the air element. And then from the air element over period of time with the glance of the Lord and the time factor, then the air element from the air element comes the the sight element. And from the sight element, fire is created. And then Lord glance and time factor. When then from the fire comes the uh, taste element, and from taste element, water is created, and from water, along with the time factor and the glance of the Lord, um, then the smell element is created, and from the smell comes earth. The Srila Prabhupada mentions that from the gross comes subtle. This whole universe is created from gross to subtle. Smell does not come from earth. Smell does not come from earth. From smell, earth is produced. Water does not produce taste, but from the taste, water is produced. Sight does not come with fire. Sometimes we say because of sun we can see, which is correct. But then from the sight, fire is created. From the sight, fire is created. And from the sound, ether is created. And from the sense of touch, air is created. So these gross elements, they come from subtle. That Prabhupada emphasizes third canto Bhagavad. This is just a summary that everything comes from gross to subtle, gross to subtle, gross to subtle. And if you see, we are in this material body, and whatever is our subtle, we will get a gross body based on our subtle consciousness. If we remember Krishna, we will go to Krishna, and if we remember whatever we remember at the time of death, we remember deer, and we take a form of a deer. So the gross body is also coming from the subtle body, and everything is coming from subtle to gross, subtle to gross, subtle to gross. And as we progress in our Krishna consciousness, we go from gross to subtle. At gross level, we are more interested in um, like something that gives pleasure to either the senses or the mind, or some desire, some gross desires, and they get fulfilled. So this is like where we are acting on a gross platform. And then when we make progress, then we go from gross to subtle, and then the subtle desires remains, and we want to fulfill our subtle desires. And then when we further make progress, then we go even further subtle and subtle and subtle. That's why we say this path of bhakti is an inward journey. And that's why the path of bhakti is where we try to work on our subtle body. What is the path of bhakti? Path of bhakti is to make our subtle body purified, actually. What we do is based on contamination the subtle body. But when the subtle body is purified, then the gross, it will reflect in our gross activities. When that becomes transparent, that becomes perfect, we become perfect externally also. So when material world is created, it goes, and when we are created, we go from subtle to gross. And when we go back to Godhead, we go from gross to subtle. Prabhupada says, gives an example in the purport that when the soul comes from the soul, around the soul, body is created. If there is no soul, like mother and father, there is no soul, then the mother cannot give rise to a body unless there is soul. So from the soul comes the body. And Prabhupada says, likewise, the universe is created also from the super soul. And before the universe is created, there is earth, water, fire, air, ether, all the sense objects, Mahatattva, false ego, three more, they're already created. And the universe is created using these elements. If you see what is the universe, universe is a gross thing. It is made up of these layers of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Each layer 10 times bigger than the previous one. Water is 10 times thicker than the earth layer, and it keeps on going. So those elements are used. First, those elements are created outside the universes, and then they are used to create the universe. And then the Lord comes and enters inside each universe, and then he manifests his universal form. And from universal form, all the devatas, they sit in the body of universal form, and that's how we come into picture. And Prabhupada gives an example, just like we are conscious of everything in this body. Anybody touches any part of the body, we know what part of the body is paining, what is going on. We are conscious of this body, but because the Lord is a super soul, now this is material body. Once the soul leaves the body, this material body has no consciousness. But because of the presence of the soul within this material body becomes, we are conscious of this material body. Likewise, this whole universe or the universal form, the source is the Lord. Around the Lord manifests his universal form, and everything is part of this universal form. Just like this, the covering of the universe or any object or the tree or the mountain or the valley or the stones or the rivers or whatever it is, they are part of the universal form. Everything is existing within universal form. So just like our body is dead, likewise, even though there are the universe is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, panchbhutas, mahapanchbhutas. Our body is made up of mahapanchbhutas, but we are conscious of everything that is happening in the body. Likewise, the universe is made up of mahapanchbhutas also. Um, and the super soul is conscious of the entire universe. So in this way, the Lord knows everything that is going on anywhere in the planet. The Lord is fully conscious. It's considered as the body of the super soul, whole universe. Prabhupada gives an example, since the Mahatattva and since this cosmic manifestation comes from the Lord, this is not different from the Lord, but at the same time it is different from the Lord. Because it comes from the Lord, it's not different, because the source of everything is Krishna. But it is different also. In one way it is Mahapanchbhuta, in one way it is spiritual because it comes from the Lord. Prabhupada says everyone has to understand the differences with the intelligence. And when we use our intelligence to understand the subject matter or understand anything that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, that our intelligence becomes purified. When we remember the Lord, our mind becomes purified. Okay, so that's all I have. If there any discussion, we can take any questions.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Dandavat always Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I have a question. You just told there is no soul. I believe you said there is no soul, no body.
I mean, if the mother, during the time of procreation, mother and father, if the soul does not, is suppose, the body cannot take place unless there is soul in the womb of mother. The father gives the soul to the mother, transfers the soul. So if there is no soul, then body cannot arise. Correct, right? Mother cannot give birth to a child with the body unless the father gives the soul, the seed. So it is the gross is taking place based on I mean the soul. The body is coming from the soul. Likewise, the universal form of the universe comes from the super soul. Prabhupada is giving an example between soul, body from the soul, and universe from the super soul. body of super soul is the whole universe, and in that way he's conscious of the whole universe. And the body of the soul is like our body, and we are conscious of the body, although both the universe and our body is made up of material elements. The soul makes everything conscious.
So basically, Prabhupada said life comes from life. That's the same thing.
Life comes from life is more like Prabhuji that yeah, um, like some people say we are created from matter. Mother and father comes together, and our body is made of matter, and there is no soul. So Prabhupada said, no, that is not true. From the soul, like we come from the soul. We don't come from mother and father. Mother and father are a direct cause, but ultimately the soul is given by Krishna, and that is what makes us. So we are not just matter.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody want to add anything? And our path, our progress is also from like false ego comes from the three modes, and then from false ego comes from Mahatattva, then comes the mind and intelligence, and further. Um, and likewise, our backward journey is also first we realize the mind, we try to control the mind in a way. We see that the mind is creating these problems, and like we start seeing the mind, and then when we further progress, then we start seeing the intelligence, then we start seeing the false ego, and then we start seeing the activities of three modes. When we are on a gross platform, we cannot see that how my gross activity are coming around by the effect of three modes. There's mode of passion on acting on me, but we think like this is what I want, mode of good, this is what I want, mode of ignorance, this is what I want. We don't see that how the three modes are acting on us because they're very subtle. The whole process is, the whole journey is going too subtle, and to the layer we are in, like we are going subtler to subtler layer, our journey. And um, the more like as we progress in our Krishna consciousness, the more subtle things becomes visible to us. Like a difference between like somebody practicing just now, somebody practicing 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They see more. Um, um, they see what I'm not able to see. Um, it's uh, more modes are visible, and but they're very subtle. In the beginning, we cannot see them. More false ego becomes visible. And also, it is said that when they are visible, then we don't act on them. But when we don't see them, then we act on them because we think this is what I want and this is what I will do and this that we do. But when we see them, then we work on them. You know, there is a saying, problem known as half solved. So when we see them, then we're like, okay. Uh, yeah. And gradually, by it's the path of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra only. Just the path of devotional service itself. Actually, everything is based on Krishna's mercy. That is the ultimate thing. But our devotional service is only to attract Krishna's mercy. And then as we progress, then we see more and we act less on them. Okay. I think that's all I have from this verse. No other thoughts come to my mind. So we'll end here. Devotees, thank you for joining. If I spoke anything wrong, please forgive me as a humble servant. Vanchakalpatarubhesha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Shri Prabhu. That's what pranams. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Namaste.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dhanyavad pranams.
Then we pranams. Hare Krishna.